Many thanks for joining today's eldoLED live webinar out of the Netherlands about DALI2 DT8 controls and designing a luminaire with that.
My name is Stefan Wijdeven, and next to me I have Mark Cremer.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Stefan. Yes. So before we get started, Stefan, and we had a little hiccup in the camera, but that's what happens in a live session, right?
Indeed.
So we're back here in the webinar. So before we get started looking into how to design a luminaire with DALI2 DT8, we first want to take a look at why DT8 in combination with eldoLED. And we basically defined 4 different pillars for that. And we have them here on the screen. So let's start with interoperability. What's so important about the interoperability of that?
If you want to make a proper end-to-end solution, you need to be interoperable with either the control and the luminaire. And to be interoperable, you need to stick to a certain standard. And there are many standards out there. 0 to 10 volt, DMX, and for example, DALI. If you would stick to a standard, and the standard is certifiable, you ensure yourself that you're compatible with each other, so you can make a working end-to-end solution without having to debug when realizing the project.
Yeah, so it's making sure that from controls to driver to the luminaire, everything is working together.
Indeed.
So, and from field perspective, so it's solving a lot of issues in the field.
Well, it's basically avoiding the issues in the field.
Okay.
So solving afterwards is nobody happy. Avoiding up front means that there are no issues at the latest hour before you need to deliver the project. And that's what you do by ensuring the compatibility up front, by sticking to standard.
Looking at the specification part of it, so why is it that important to have DT8 in specification of our tunable white lighting?
If I look into the specification I've seen in the last few months, people are no longer specifying tunable white, but people tend to specify human-centric lighting, probably because it sounds better, next to the fact that people specify DT8 or DALI color in their specification. Because by adding that in the specification, they ensure themselves that it's a digital protocol, that it's a reliable protocol, and there's no room for any change if you mention DT8 in the specification. And that's what you would see happening in the last few months.
Mm-hmm. So it is really the way to specify your lighting, specifying controls, DT8.
Yeah, you don't often see brands in there, but DALI is not a brand. DALI is a trademark. So if that gets specified, you ensure yourself that it's a protocol which is widely used in the industry for lighting applications.
Okay, so let's take a look at what are the benefits in combination with eldoLED, right? So we talk about light shape for some time, but what makes it unique to have DT8 on the control side and light shape on the LED control side?
DT8 is a correct way of telling to a control gear anything about color. But that's just a language. In the end, the luminaire provides light based on the current that goes through the luminaire. What we do with the light shape technology at eldoLED is we basically translate the DALI language into the proper current. Without making that correct translation, you're asking something and you have no clue what you will get in the end. And light shape is the linking pin between the luminaire and the DALI language from the control gateway.
So it brings that consistency from luminaire to luminaire and from intensity to intensity or color to color in your space.
Exactly.
And last but not least, and we talk about it in more detail later, but the product offering, right? The wide product offering of eldoLED with DT8 controls.
Yeah, there are multiple types of luminaires. You have linear luminaires, you have downlights, you have panels. You see them all in one space. And if you want to make use of DALI color, you don't want one of the tunable white luminaires to be DALI color and another 0 to 10 volt or just regular DALI, because then you need to mix the control languages. That's not an easy thing to do. And that's the reason why you need a broader range of products to be able to have drivers available for every product segment, which is typically used in office lighting and which products you would typically see in one single room. because from room to room, there is some space to do different, but within one room, you want to stick to one single protocol.
Okay, very good. So let's take a look at the other topics that we'll talk today in this webinar. So we'll take a deeper look into the DIA, the industry alliance that develops the DALI2 standard. Next to that, what is color science, and what's so important about you having your color science in the driver to be able to control with your DT8 lighting controls. And then designing for success. What are the different elements from controller to driver to luminaire to build in the end in your installation a consistent tunable light application. And then look into the product offering by eldoLED.
Exactly.
So let's start with the DIA. So can you tell a little bit more about that?
Well, the DALI trademark is already there for 30 years. And it's a use protocol which started from fluorescent lights to turn on, and it evolved and it evolved. And a few years ago, the DIA working group is founded, and that is the industry alliance for the DALI trademark. So now the trademark is no longer owned by a company, but it's a joint effort of the industry leaders that are using the DALI protocol in their daily operations and their daily products.
So how do I get my DALI2 mark on my product?
Yeah, if you look into DALI versus DALI2, with DALI you were able to certify your drivers yourself without anyone looking into the results of the testing. With DALI2, we can still do the testing ourselves if you have the required test setup for those type of testings, but you need to submit your test results, and an independent working group is looking to that test results to see if they're exactly according to specification. If that's the case, you get a certification and you're allowed to use the DALI2 trademark on your product. And that ensures that you're compatible with all the other DALI2 products out there in the market.
So you show compliance to the DALI2 standard.
Exactly.
And can I submit my luminaire as well to the DIA or to that same system?
Luminaires can be registered, but if the luminaires are equipped with DALI2 control gears and DALI2 compatible sensor devices, if they're integrated in the luminaire, there's no reason for additional testing because all the individual components are already tested. You can still register your luminaire so you can use the DALI trademark on the luminaire itself instead of only on the control gears and sensors in the luminaire.
Okay, okay. So looking at the memberships of DIA. So there are many companies member of the DIA.
I see hundreds.
Yeah, they're not even all on here, but there are more than here.
Where's eldoLED?
Well, eldoLED is not a member of the DIA as eldoLED. So we are part of Acuity Brands, our mother company in the United States. We're listed as Acuity Brands as a company being a regular member of the DIA.
So our engineers in eldoLED are contributing to that standard out of the name of Acuity Brands, basically in that case.
Yes. So what's the role of a member in DIA?
Well, there are two types of members. You have the regular members and you have the associated members. The regular members are roughly 20 members which actually contribute into writing the standard, maintaining the standard, and contribute also in the test sequence and the test equipment. So that's a smaller working group of the industry leaders. Next to that, you have more than 100 associated members. Those are only using the standard and using the effort that the regular members have done for testing to certify their products.
To submit their products.
Yeah, you need to be an associated member to be able to use the DALI2 trademark on the product. If you're not on this list, you're not allowed to use a DALI2 trademark on your product.
And they also organize test events, right? Like plug fests.
Yeah.
So what happens on these events?
Well, you cannot cover everything in a test. You always need to link products together to find the gaps in the test sequences. What we do in a plug fest, that's a yearly thing. All the big players in the market come together in one room. They bring all their stuff with them, all the new developments, and they connect everything together.
I see how it works.
Yeah, there becomes a huge wiring mess, but because they connect everything together and look on the DALI line if everything is compatible, they can find the gaps in the test sequences, because if they find an issue when they hook up stuff together, which is already tested with the test sequences, they see, hey, we missed this part because we never thought that anyone would do this kind of behavior. And that's why you need those hands-on testing.
A bit of trial and error.
It's trial and error to find the gaps.
Data versions.
Yeah, to find the gaps in those test sequences, and those test sequences are improving every month. I mean, every issue that people see on compatibility is covered in the next test sequences.
And it's always a fun event as well, right? Because all these companies are coming together.
Yeah.
As engineers.
Those engineers do not see
as well.
Those engineers do not see each other as competitors. They're friends from the industry.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter from which company you're working for. You're doing exactly the same. You have the same mindset. You have the same knowledge, and therefore it's a group of friends.
So looking into that standard, the DALI-2 standard. So there are different parts in that, and we would like to take a deeper look into that, right? So we start with the device type 6. That's the definition of an LED driver.
Yeah, but you need to go one level higher. The definition of DALI.
Yeah.
That's 2 wires, which can be connected next to the mains. It requires 2 wires. All those basic requirements are in the 101, the general requirements.
Yeah.
Then you have a second topic on that, that's called the 102. That are the requirements that are specifically for control gears. So not the ones for the gateways, but only the ones for the control gears. And those cover, for example, the way the DALI module is integrated, the position of the terminal, the clearances, the electrical safety, and so on. That's all part of that general requirements part. Then you have some particular requirements. Those cover feature sets in control gears, and were used already for many years on the device type 6. That's an LED driver, and an LED driver has most of the times a dimming curve you can set. It can provide you a lamp failure. It can provide you diagnostic data. Basic diagnostic data is my product power cycled and so on. That's all part of 207. Which is also referred to as DT8.
DT6.
Or DT6, sorry, you're correct.
And functionally, it's just dimming the lights, right?
Functionally, it's just dimming the lights and providing the scene values and all that stuff.
Yeah.
If you then look into DALI color, you need an additional language to speak about a color value. Those parts are covered in the 209 part, which we refer to as device type 8. That's only containing the parts you need for color control. So if you look into a device type 8 LED driver, the control commands are part of DT8, but the intensity commands are still part of device type 6.
So it's a combination
of 2 parts which are combined in one product, but mostly mentioned just as device type 8.
So the DT8 consists of 3 different color types or color modes. So TC, XY, and RGB, WAF.
Yeah.
So let's take a deeper look at those 3 different modes and what the differences are and why most are looking into the TC right now.
Yeah, if we speak about a tunable application, it can be tunable in color, it can be tunable in shades of white. There are different applications, but the majority in the market today is mixing warm white and cold white along the black body locus, or expecting to have a color value on the black body locus. That's what's covered in the color temperature TC part, where you set a color command based on a Kelvin value that you fill in next to an intensity. It has the benefit over device type 6 that it saves a DALI address, because you no longer need an address for warm white and cold white, but you have a dedicated address where you can send an intensity command and the color command to the same address. Mm-hmm. And it's filled in with Kelvin values. So that's an easy way to speak about a tunable white color. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense if we're speaking about an RGBW LED strip, for example. So that's what you would see. If you look into those 3 options, the first one is mainly used for tunable white applications with 2 light sources, warm and cold white. The third one, the second one, the XY version, that offers you the possibility to move around in the color space. But then you need at least 3 channels to be able to move in a 3-directional way in the color space. Because those applications are not that common today, you're hardly seeing any XY device type 8 control gears out there in the market today. Then you still have the RGBW, amber, and free color. That's an easy way to implement an RGBW application. What you used to have in the past, that you would have a different intensity for each color. And if you wanted to change the brightness, you needed to tweak all the four dimming values at the same time to maintain the same color. With RGBW, amber, free color, you give the color value based on RGB color values, and next to that you have a separate intensity command where you can change the intensity and maintaining that same RGBW color.
So are they all three part of the DALI2 standard?
No, they're all part of the standard, but only the TC version is capable of certifying. So only for a DALI device type 8 TC device is a test sequence available that it's completed, and that can be used to certify your control gear to be allowed to use the DALI2 trademark.
Yeah, so all DT8 certified products are TC.
Yeah, indeed. There's still no way to certify an RGBW amber free color type of luminaire with a DALI2 trademark.
Okay.
And that's based on effort, because the TC is the most used, and the rest is less used. The biggest effort is put into TC, and that's the reason why that one is the first. And the next are probably to follow.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, when there is a huge demand for that.
Okay, so that's a lot about the controls language, how you call it, the DT8 part. So then looking into the color science, because as you mentioned, I can, as a controller, I can send, well, go to that color temperature or go to 3000 Kelvin. But what happens on the driver's side with that, right? So how does I know that my LEDs in the end deliver that color by mixing two channels?
Well, that's not part of the standard, because the standard is only covering the language of DALI. And if we look into tunable white, we have two ways of operating a tunable white luminaire. If I want to dim, I use my intensity handle or knob on the wall. And if I want to change the color, I use my color handle to change the color.
So what's an handle?
An handle is what you can do from a human perspective on a human interface or a control interface, which allows you to control the light. And a single color light source you can only dim, therefore you only have one control handle. With a tunable white luminaire you can dim and tune. That's the reason why we speak about those two handles.
Okay.
If you then look into our expectations, we expect that if you change the intensity, that your color remains the same if I don't touch that color handle.
Sure.
And the opposite, if I move my color handle, I expect my brightness level to be the same. But that's not guaranteed.
Well, not even on one luminaire, right?
Not even on one luminaire.
On every luminaire that I have.
And from luminaire to luminaire, you can also have differences there. And that's why we as eldoLED come in with our light shape technology. Our light shape technology solves the part where the DALI language is basically ending.
Okay, so looking into how that system is built together, right? So creating that tunable white installation in the end. So it's built up in those three parts, we'd call it.
Yeah, we have on the left side, we have there the human interface or the control interface. That can be the gateway, it can be a dimmer in the wall, it can be a touchscreen, it can be anything. Yeah. It can even be a mobile device. That set point gets to an LED driver, and that LED driver is transferring that set point to a certain drive current, which is suitable for the luminaire. That translation needs to be done in the driver, because that language is fully standardized. But how you generate the right current isn't standardized. If you then look into typical luminaire data, everybody understands that you need to provide a driver with a drive current, which is suitable for the luminaire. Yeah. Not enough current is not enough light. Too much current is in the end no light anymore. But next, for a tunable white applications, you need more data than just a drive current. You also need to understand how much light will my warm white channel give me at a certain drive current, and how much would I get from a cold white channel. If I look to two typical values, you see that they're not equal. So the driver needs to understand that a warm white channel is typically less efficient than the cold white channel. And the driver needs to mix accordingly. Next to the fact that we need to tell the driver which colors I can make, because colors that are not in my gamut from my luminaire, I can ask from a control system. But in the end, I cannot provide a drive current that generates the color, which is out of the specification of a luminaire. So what we need to do is we need to take this data and we need to bring this data into the LED driver in such a way that the driver becomes color aware.
Programmed in the driver.
Yeah, we store that data of the luminaire into the driver. And because the driver at that moment knows the data of the luminaire, it can calculate in a real-time way the right mix of current to provide in the end the expected type of light that we have asked. And that's what our light shape technology is doing. It's the linking pin between the control gear and the luminaire.
So it's a very brief explanation, of course, of what light shape in the end is doing.
Well, it's if you ask our engineers, it's enormous complex, but we made it easy by simply taking the luminaire data and storing it in the driver, and the driver does the rest.
Based on the LED characteristics, it knows what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So how does that work in the field, right? So, or let's take it step by step of, I have those values from the luminaire. So I have that range that I can control out of my specs of my luminaire.
Indeed. The luminaire is equipped with a certain amount of LEDs with a certain color temperature. In this case, we're speaking about 2700 and 6500 Kelvin. And as I already explained, the brightness levels of those two channels are not equal. So if we look into this space and I say I want, for example, to design a 2000 lumen luminaire, everybody would understand that with 2700 Kelvin, I can never reach that 2000 lumens. So if we want to be able to design the luminaire in such a way it can reach 2000 lumens at each color, I need to reduce my gamut. So if I reduce it, for example, to 3000 Kelvin to 5500 Kelvin, I can probably reach around 2200 lumens at 3000 Kelvin. And at the wall operating range, my lumen output remains constant.
So my color temperature range gets shorter.
Indeed.
But my lumen over that range is consistent and maybe even...
Exactly, and predictable from a control perspective, because this is a 100% flat intensity. When I change my color temperature, my brightness level remains the same. This is typically what an OEM needs to do when they're configuring their drivers.
So this is values of these values are given by the LEDs.
Yeah.
This is what you do in the factory.
Indeed. Yeah. The only one that knows the LED data is the manufacturer of the luminaire that often provides the driver as well. So those are the only people that can correctly provide the parameters into the LED driver. And then from a site perspective, people might want to change that as well.
Yeah, so from here, the luminaire with driver gets shipped.
What we do is we translate this data into the new physical warmest and coolest from a DALI perspective. So the DALI commissioner, or the one that set up the light sources, is only seeing that 3000 Kelvin and 5500 Kelvin value. But because you have often more than just one luminaire,
or one type of luminaire.
Of luminaire, you might want to change those warmest and coolest, and you might want to reduce the gamut again a little bit to have an equal performance from luminaire brand A and luminaire brand B and C combined in one single room. And that's why you can still reduce the gamut on a site commissioning base. And that's just to avoid that if I say go to 2700 Kelvins, that some of the luminaires will stay at 3000 Kelvin because they cannot then go any lower, and others will go lower. That would destroy your visual appearance in your room.
Yeah, so in fact saying, well, all go to 2700 Kelvin, one is only possible to go to 3000, so it will never go further.
Yeah, and in that case, the DALI commissioner often programs all the luminaires to that same minimal level to maintain that equal color space in the environment.
Very good, thank you. So looking into what eldoLED can offer you for that. So what is the product portfolio supporting DT8 and light shape? It's the dual drive.
Indeed, you need at least a dual drive. And why is it called dual drive? That's not because it has two LED outputs.
It's a big mistake often made, right?
People often think that a dual drive means I have two LED outputs. No, as I explained before, it has two control handles which I can control. That's the reason why the solo drive is called a solo drive, because it has only one control handle. But a solo drive can still have two or more outputs, but they're all doing exactly the same according to the control handle, because I have only one way of control. But with a solo drive, I can still make a dim to warm application.
Another application of light shape, but...
It's another application of light shape, but controlled with only one control handle. So for a device type 8 type of product, which requires two control handles, I need a dual drive. And you would definitely need more than just one form factor, because I also want to produce more than just one single type of luminaires. So it starts with form factors. You're not only there with just a linear driver. You always
one for downlight, and
Indeed, you need multiple form factors. So when launching the product successfully, you need to offer a portfolio instead of just a product. And that's the nice thing of an eldoLED driver. We are capable of upgrading the feature set of our products. So all the products we've released in the past few years are now getting updated with that latest version of the DALI-8, DALI device type 8 control language. And because we have done a lot of effort in the past designing those products, we're now relatively easy moving all those products into a device type 8.
So if I look onto the DIA website, I can see all products that are certified, right?
Yeah.
From any manufacturer.
Yeah.
So not all eldoLED drivers on there are DT8 certified yet.
No, indeed. We have launched more than 18 drivers at the moment, but they're not all on the DIA website, because a typical certification process from a test perspective takes approximately 3 days of effort. And if there is one issue popping up because of a wiring issue or a light meter device that is not set up correctly, you need to start from scratch again. Mm-hmm. So that's a huge amount of effort you need to put into to get them all certified.
Yeah.
Indeed, and that's what we're doing now on a weekly basis. We're testing all those products, we're submitting the results. It takes time to review those results, and that's the reason why you won't see all those 18 products on the website yet.
So even they're not certified, there's no functional difference between those.
Indeed,
versions.
They're all running on the same firmware base, they're all running on the same command set, and they behave all equal, except for the fact that they're not allowed to use the DALI2 trademark on there. And that's a matter of time, and all the products are in the end DALI2 certified. Indeed.
Okay. Well, thank you, Stefan, for all that explanation. Well, we're at the end of the main content of this webinar. We first want to say, please keep following us. So we're active on LinkedIn, Twitter, and we have a lot of videos also around these topics on YouTube, which is all on our eldoLED Experience website listed here. And we keep that updated, right?
Yeah, we're shooting on a weekly basis new videos. We try to provide you with as lot of content as we can to inform you to do it in a one-time right. Because not knowing means making mistakes. Educating people up front is avoiding mistakes in the field. And that's in the end what we're all trying to do.
Very good. Thank you. So we would like to open up for questions. And we're looking into Heino, our producer here behind the camera. So Heino, are there any questions coming in?
Yes, there are questions coming in. Thank you for this. The first question is, how do I know what controls to choose?
Which controller, how to know which controller to use for my DT8?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Well, there are many control gates out there in the market. So you could use a gateway from brand A, and you can use a driver from brand B. They don't have to be the same brands. But because of the DALI2 certification, it might be a good thing to choose 2 DALI2 certified devices. Because next to the control gears, you can also certify a gateway. So I would go to the DIA website and look for certified DALI2 gateways to ensure the compatibility with DALI2 control gears. That's the easiest step to select a DALI2 gateway in the market today.
I think this answers the question quite well. Then the next question is, so does it mean that every DT8 DALI2 certified luminaire is color aware? So you will get consistent color all over different fixtures in the same project?
No, that's definitely not the case, because the DALI test sequences are only covering that language part. In the whole certification process, nobody looks into the color behavior of the luminaire, because the certification part is only to ensure compatibility between control gateway and LED driver. And that's where it ends from a certification perspective. But using a known brand, which is color aware, should be able to provide you that end-to-end solution in a correct way.
Okay, thank you for that answer.
Questions, Heino?
Yeah, we have even more questions than this. Do you have 24-volt solutions in DT8?
Yeah, for a constant voltage product offering for LED strips,
Yeah,
lighting,
or
tape lighting, we're offering a linear drive 200, which is a 200 watt DC device which gets supplied by 24 volts and has two outputs, one for warm white and one for cold white, which are capable of 8 amps each.
And I guess this also contains the light shape.
Yes, because you need a certain way to do that color awareness in the driver. We have implemented the exact same light shape algorithms into that linear drive product.
Okay, thank you for this answer. And then the last question we got is, so is RGBW with 4 channels is currently not testable in the test sequence?
No, there are at the moment no test sequences available to test the behavior of the RGBW amber-free color part in device type 8. You can still test the performance of the lamp failure and the intensity channels. Just the color part of DT8 is not part of the test sequences yet.
So there is no DT8 RGBW available certified?
Not in a DALI2 certified way.
Okay.
And that's the only way that ensures the compatibility between the gateway and the driver. It doesn't necessarily mean that the products are not good enough to be able to use in the project. They're just not certified.
From an interoperability point of view, they're not guaranteed on functionality from a standard perspective.
Yeah. So I would test that up front, to be honest, before going into the field.
Sure, yeah. Any other questions?
So that was the last really good question, so that was it.
Thank you, Heino. Well, then we're at the end of this webinar. Stefan, many thanks. Everyone, thank you for joining today. This session is recorded, and we'll share it by a link by email, so you can watch it back, and we'll post it on our Experience webpage as well. So again, thank you for joining, and have a good day.
Bye-bye.